Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call to order the meeting of Monroe County Council for Tuesday, July 11th. And I would like to note for the record that we have 6 council members present here in the Nat U Hill Room, and Councilor Deckard is joining us via Zoom. And we will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone wish to add or remove an item from tonight's agenda? Yes.
I do. Test. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's really loud. I move to amend item number 8 to clarify the probation department's request to also deappropriate an account line, create a new account line, and simultaneously amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns about amending that item? Okay. Then we will do a roll call vote on the amendment.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard,
Yes.
Councilor Crossley,
Yes.
Councilor Wilkes,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes.
Amendment passes unanimously.
So we're having some
Echoes.
hot mic issues. And I don't hear you in the room, no. So that mic isn't working. We could move that one if that's a quick fix. I'll just try to keep mine off when I'm not speaking, see if that helps. Are there any other changes for the agenda? Okay, I'd just like to note that we will have Councilor Iverson reading for us this evening to make it a little bit easier on Councilor Deckard. I know from experience, zooming in is a little bit of a barrier on full participation, so thank you.
Welcome.
We now move to item number 4, public comment on items not on the agenda. We have a time limit of 3 minutes per speaker for this. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? If you're in the Nat U Hill Room, come on up to the podium. If you're online, please go ahead and raise your hand so we can unmute you. I see no people rushing to make comment. So we will move on then to department updates. Do we have any departments here that wish to make an update? Yes.
I have an update, but not from my department. I have an update regarding the technical service department. Just so everyone's aware, the technical service department did make a KSA request for a 3-year hire. And per the resolution that was passed by the council, typically the council administrator and the personnel administrator would review that request together. In the absence of the council administrator, I reviewed that request and I sent all of council the results of that review, and I don't believe anyone had indicated that they would run it reviewed by the entire council, so TSD is going to move forward with hiring that KSA.
Thank you. Are there any council questions about that? Okay, we're scrambling to cover, so thank you for doing that. Any other department updates, either in person or online? All right. I do not see any, which brings us to council liaison updates. Are there any council members wishing to make an update? Councilor Munson.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to announce that this Friday, July 14th at noon, will be the deadline for turning in applications for the Sophia Travis Grants Program. And then I would like to invite you all, if you are interested, to please join the County Council in hearing presentations by each of the applicants, and that will be on July 26th at 4:30 p.m. here in the Nat U Hill Room, or you can catch it on CATS, and you can also see it afterwards in CATS Archive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Iverson.
Thank you, President Wiltz. I have two updates for you. The first comes from the Monroe County Environmental Commission. Last Wednesday, we presented to the Board of Commissioners, who created a blue ribbon advisory council to help move forward our contract with the Environmental Resilience Institute at Indiana University. And that work is being led by Commissioner Lee Jones. So thank you to her for her work on this in advance. We will also be working very closely with Monroe County's McKinney Climate Fellow that we are working in conjunction with the Indiana University Environmental Resilience Institute. So keep your eyes open for more information on that. The second update I bring you is from the Justice Fiscal Advisory Committee. We had a meeting last night where we covered probation as well as housing issues. That was a really great conversation. Make sure to go onto the JFAC website, which you can access through the County Council's website. And I'll just note that our next meeting will be October 31st at 4:30 p.m. in this very room. July 31st. I've got Halloween on my mind. July 31st. Thank you. And the reason why Councilmember Crossley knows about this is because she will be chairing that meeting. We'll be discussing Intercept Zero on the SAMHSA SIM model, which includes crisis diversion through crisis teams as well as crisis centers. So make sure to mark your calendars thusly for July 31st. July.
I see Councilor Deckard has his hand raised.
Thank you very much. Not for a question, but just for a liaison report. I just know that most people have read the news coverage of the election board and their continuing thoughts on vote centers. I know that we at our last meeting talked about it. And I just wanted to say, since I'd offered so many comments about vote centers, and for anyone watching at home, a vote center means that when you would go to vote on election day, you could vote at any polling site one time. You get to vote at any polling site in Monroe County. Theoretically, this eases your access towards it. In the last meeting, I had offered some comments about, based on my experience formerly with the state's election division, how counties can enter in this and make voting easier, and they also can make voting harder, and that I would appreciate if the election board articulated some philosophy or thought hard about that. And they've indicated from all the accounts that I've seen and the reports I've received from county legal, including our own Molly, Attorney King, that they're looking at this very thoughtfully. And I appreciate that very much. Elections are hard enough. It's hard to think through all those dilemmas, but I appreciate that our bipartisan election board that serves that election in a bipartisan way, so we know it's a fair one, that they will do that. And that's a great thing. The last thing I say, it's not really a report, but I just want to congratulate the Fair Board, 4-H, Extension, period, for a beautiful fair. A good time was had by all, and I think that's all that I need to say. And I know I'm not the liaison, but I wanted to just get that plug in. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Just a quick update as the council appointee to the BEDC board. Just wanted to let everybody know that the Board of Commissioners did approve the MOU with the BEDC this past Wednesday, which allows us to expend our pledge for 2023 budget year for economic development activities with the BEDC. thank the commissioners for supporting this effort, and thank all of you for your support of continuing to foster prosperity in Monroe County.
Just wanted to let you know that had a conference call today with our assessor, Judy Sharp, and she was out and about with two of her deputies going from one property to the next to react and to respond to the questions that she's getting in the assessor's office. There's been so many changes in the legislation, and folks are very interested in what's going on with their assessed values. And they have a big job ahead of them, different. Of course, there's always, every year, it seems like there's something different, but they certainly have something new that they're going to be working on, and I'm sure she'll be bringing you that information. They'll be meeting in their office tomorrow at 10:30. She cannot invite all three, any more than three, but if anybody has time to drop by her office to get an update on some of the things they're doing, she would welcome you to come and visit with them. The other thing I wanted to say, since I'm sort of the self-appointed legislative person here, is that we have the opportunity as a county council to provide some property tax relief that is similar to the over 65 circuit breaker credit. And it is, we have to pass it to say it doesn't just happen automatically, as I understand it. And so that is tied to whatever your property values can't be more than the 240,000, because that has been changed to that. And your income, there's different levels for income, if whether you're one person or two person household, whatever. But I'm hereby asking our county legal department to make sure that that legislation change, not just that code, because that code's huge, that portion that is tied to the over 65 circuit breaker, and the one that would be similar to that for those who are just a bit under 65, that they could also get that, so that they don't lose the opportunity just because they're only 63 or something. And I don't have that memorized, but I would appreciate it if you could maybe get that under important news on the front page of the county site. Because we've got a lot. When we look at our circuit breakers, we can see how many people qualify that are over the 65. And boy, a lot of them are, in my district, we have lots of folks there that are getting older, and they qualify for this. And we don't want anyone losing their homes because their taxes are going up too high. So it's not just that it's important for them, but the deadline for us to start moving on that, for them to get that result, is upon us. So we need to do that ASAP, if we plan to do it.
Okay.
I can look at getting that onto the county website.
Okay, if you could communicate with Marty and let me know, that would be great. Any other updates? I have one, not necessarily liaison oriented either, but Councilor Deckard and I have been involved with the Community Voices for Health project in Monroe County, and that started back in April of 2020, believe it or not, and ran through last November, and then received additional funding to continue through next month. And they've issued a kind of a report to the community that if people are interested in kind of seeing what that project was about and what the outcomes were, they can certainly check that out. I'll forward it to council. But in very, very brief terms, the goal was to bring together community members as well as decision makers, including some elected officials, but all facets of the county being represented, and take a dive into what are the issues that affect health and what are the needs and challenges around those issues and the processes for decision making that are intended to address those issues. And the primary focus across everything was equity and making sure that that public engagement is inclusive, equitable, and meaningful. And the premise there too being that that type of engagement will lead to improvements in health and well-being across the community. The process worked through a lot of data gathering from participants, came up with top 10 priority areas around health that are affecting our community, and then worked on researching those and really diving into what are some barriers and how can our community address those. There's a lot in here on the activities, so this is the summary report is available on their website, which I assume will be up for at least another month and a half. And the web address is just communityvoicesmonroecounty.org, all one word. And I wanted to just indicate that one of the big outcomes for this project was the formation of the Monroe County Health Equity Council, which will continue to work with local elected officials to keep officials and policymakers informed and the public involved in all types of issues around community wellness and health. So it's a big, broad umbrella, and they're working right now on organization and internal policy, as well as tackling some broad issues for our community. So I would encourage you to keep an eye out for any information coming from Monroe County Health Equity Council. That is my liaison update. Now we go to item number 7 on our agenda, which is from our Highway Department.
Council, I move to approve ordinance 2023-22, authorizing the issuance of bonds in an amount not to exceed $8 million, plus investment earnings for the purpose of providing funds for the Fullerton Pike Bridge project. The complete ordinance is available online for review in today's packet.
Second.
Thank you. And we have Lisa Rich here to talk to us. Welcome.
Good evening. I thought Jeff was going to be here and just realized my name was the only one on this. So if you have any questions about the project, we've been working with FSG and the legal department for the cost of the projects that we have coming up. So we wanted to utilize the Fullerton Pike TIF and the Major Bridge Fund to help fund these 2 bridge replacements. The first one's Fullerton Pike Phase 3. It's going to be over a 500-foot bridge that's been designed that is required per DNR requirements. So that's what the first bridge will be. And if there's any leftover funds after construction of that bridge, they would go towards the Mount Tabor Bridge, Bridge 13 up by Bottom Road. That's under design at this time.
Thank you. And this is a first reading, so we
This
aren't
is the second reading.
It's the second.
This is the second reading. So we should discuss, and then I will call the vote. Are there questions or comments? Yes, Councilor McKim.
So first of all, thank you very much for sending us out the description of the project for the bridge and the road. I wish there was a way, I'm saying this to the media who might be listening here. There's a lot of good information there, and it's kind of buried on the county website. I mean, it is that document is there, but you really have to know that it's there to find it. And I think a lot of the public, at one time, this project was controversial, and there's a lot of excitement about it. I think at this point, people are just looking forward to it being done. But Can you just so everybody knows what we're talking about, can you just talk briefly about the background of the Fullerton Pike Phase 3 and what the bridge specifically constitutes as well?
And all the neighbors.
Sure.
arguing.
So Fullerton Pike Phase 3 is Phase 3 of 3 phases. It began in 2008 when it originated. Actually, the overall project was in our master thoroughfare plan. I know at least back to 1995 from the first one that I saw. I believe it was on maps before that. It was to be built as a southwest arterial road for the county. So it's been envisioned for many, many years. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been completed since 2017. Phase 3 will start at Rockport Road and Fullerton Pike intersection. That will be a traffic signal. We could not afford to, we looked into the option of putting in a roundabout at that intersection. But again, that would have added a $1.5 million to $2 million cost to the project. There will be a roundabout at Bachelor Drive and Gordon Pike that will mimic probably the roundabout that's at Rogers Street and Gordon Pike. The bridge will go over the trail that is there, the Clear Creek Trail, I believe it goes over. It's a 524-foot bridge. It features a 6-foot median, a 10-foot multi-use path, and a 5-foot sidewalk. The multi-use path and the sidewalk will be separated from the travel lanes with a concrete barrier rail. And the bridge will cross over the Clear Creek Trail. Ramps will be constructed to connect the Clear Creek Trail with the sidewalk and the multi-use path. At this time, utilities are being relocated so that when we go to letting, the letting date for this project, I believe it's November 13th. And then it will go into construction in the spring of 2024. And it will take approximately 18 to 24 months for completion. We've received a lot of, again, this project is probably one of the love-hate projects. You either like it or you don't. I think we've come a long way since 2017 in working with the residents in that area. We were just reaching out recently about progress meetings. We've learned a lot, say on the Bicentennial Pathway Project, of getting notices out when we begin work, when a contractor is hired, when we will hold progress meetings. It's our goal to have an email group as we did on this other project. It will send out updates to whoever signs up to that email list. It will address any concerns, issues as the project is being built. It's a really busy area. Once you get into the school area, we've had the school system, the library reach out, how we can work with them on their drive. So there's a lot of obstacles to it, but we're trying to stay ahead of that so that we can have good communication going through and building this last phase of Fullerton Pike.
So I'm kind of dying to see how, I mean, this is going to be our first actual multi-use trail interchange where you have one trail interchanging with another at a different grade. So I'm going to be really interested in how that's going to work.
Yeah, and right now also we have the council and the commissioners put into their GO bond roundabout landscaping for the Rogers Street and Gordon Pike roundabout. We wanted to make that aesthetics a little bit more appealing. So we have a irrigation system being put in. We have lights being put in. I believe this month we will have we will shut down part of the roundabout to have a crane bring in some stone that we have purchased for the project. And then there'll be plantings that will actually go year round that we're working with Nature's Way on the proper plantings, what can go there. And then we would like to mimic the other roundabout to do that. So I think we're really trying to appease the community down there. I know they were really concerned with the traffic, the connection to I-69, but also it's something that's a need for many users in that area that are very excited for the project.
It's a major addition to Monroe County. I think it's a very important project. And you've done a great job in working with the neighbors.
Thank you.
I know that. Just one more quick question. This is about the sidewalk in front of the library. You know, a lot of people have been a little bit frustrated that the library didn't build, the brand new library, they didn't build connections from the sidewalk to, or from the sidewalk going along Gordon Pike to their front door. And I know that they have plans to do it both from the front door and the pavilion at the lower level. But my understanding is that there might be some changes in alignment of the existing sidewalk. Is that?
So we will come in and reconstruct that area when we get to that. We have it split out into phases. I believe that's phase 3 of 4. So we have reached out. We're working with the planning department. If there's something that we can do temporary, we're willing to help do that. It's sometimes in these developments, it's up to the developer of when they want to install their sidewalks and trees. Sometimes we don't have a lot of jurisdiction over that. But I have reached out to the planning. We did receive some phone calls and questions about the lack of the sidewalk there. So the planning director just came back on Monday. We have a meeting Thursday afternoon. That's one of the items that we want to discuss to see if on planning side of what we can do with the developer. It's a local engineering firm. They're great to work with. And see if we can work out something between all the entities to get something temporary until we're in that area down the road.
That's great. I appreciate that. I encourage you to continue to work to get something done. And I've said the same to the library director. Thanks.
Other questions or comments on, yes?
Thank you, Ms. Ridge. I think I heard it, but just as a reiteration, because I have a lot of people and constituents in that area that keep talking to me about when is it going to be done. When did you say that it would, the proposed
So
deadline?
the letting, right now, and the only reason why we have right-of-way completed, utilities are being moved right now. There's a new permit called a Clomer permit that has to do in the floodplain, so we're waiting for the approval of that permit. So we moved the letting actually to November, that was originally July. NDOT will award that because the contract is actually between NDOT and the county. And then typically December 1st through April 1st is not considered construction season for contractors. So that'll be the time for setting up the pre-construction meetings with the contractor, working out all these details with the consultant, and then they'll head into construction typically after April 1st. And we anticipate it taking till the end of 2025 to finish the project.
Thank you.
Lots to come. Other questions or comments from council? Am I right? Okay. In that case, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Public comment?
Oh, how about some public comment? Any public comment? Oh, Mr. Shelton.
Good evening, Council. Jim Shelton with the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. We have supported this project for many years. I want to echo Mr. McKim's compliments to Ms. Ridge and her staff for their dealing with the residents. I think there probably are still some people who are unhappy with it, but I think overall their concerns have been addressed. She has worked very hard with them to get that done. We really need to get this done. This right now there's an exit from I-69 on Fulton Pike, and it goes, I don't know what, Lisa, a few hundred yards, and then it ends. And we need to go ahead and get that connected to the work that's been done on phase 1 and phase 2. And this is a necessary part of it. And then as a member of the county RDC, I certainly say we support this use of the TIF funds to help take care of this bond cost. So please approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Are there any other members of the public wishing to make comment? All right, now we can have a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Welts.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the amended item 8 on our agenda.
All right, so this is the item that we changed at the very beginning. So, council, I move to approve the probation department's request to deappropriate Fund 1114-0273, Special Purpose Local Income Tax, account line 12257, Juvenile Supervision Probation Officer, in the amount of $29,922.53 to approve the creation of a new account line in Fund 1114-0273, Special Purpose Local Income Tax 1114-0273, account line 12260, Evidence-Based Practices Coordinator, and to simultaneously amend the salary ordinance to add Fund 1114-0273, Special Purpose Local Income Tax 1114-0273, account line 12260, Evidence-Based Practice Coordinator, 35 hours, special occupation, non-exempt. Are we good? All right, thank you.
Second.
Nice. And we have Linda Brady here on Zoom to speak with us. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Linda Brady, Chief Probation Officer, and boy, was that a mouthful. Dear, you did a good job with that. So as you all know, because I've been sending you emails, the probation department has continued to experience problems with staff recruitment and retention. In the past 2 years, we've only had a total of 3 weeks where our staff was fully staffed, where we didn't have any vacancies of full-time staff. So that's been unfortunate, but I know that we're not alone in this post-COVID world with this. But every time we do have somebody leave our department, we reassess the workload, the caseload, and just see, do we still need the position? Do we still need the position to do what the position was doing before? And so in this case, we had 2 juvenile probation officers resign around the same time, and took a look at the caseload, the workload, and talked this over with our presiding judge, Judge Deekoff, and also our juvenile judge, Judge Holly Harvey, to talk about what could we do with this position. So the decision was that we would go ahead and ask permission from the council to refill one position with a juvenile supervision officer, but with the other juvenile probation officer to make a request to change the job title, the job duties to an evidence-based practices coordinator position. Just to give you a little background on evidence-based practices coordinator position, we received funding from the Indiana Department of Correction in 2021 for our first evidence-based practices coordinator. And that was funded entirely from the Department of Correction grant. Since that time, we've been getting some advice from national consultants who've been working with us on a reducing revocations challenge, and also on our JDAI, the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative project. And we've been told by numerous consultants that for a department of our size with 55 probation officers, that having just one evidence-based practice coordinator is not enough. They've made a recommendation that at minimally we need at least one more position to help with training our staff and watching videos of our probation officers as they deliver the cognitive behavioral interventions, to give them feedback and help coach them to be effective. We also know that if you deliver these kinds of cognitive behavioral interventions in an ineffective manner, you can actually do more harm than good. You can increase recidivism by delivering these practices ineffectively. So it's very important that we have effective, not only evidence-based practices, but they're true to the way they're supposed to be implemented, and that we continue to train our staff and coach our staff. So this is a request not to change any funding or anything like that, but to have the second juvenile probation officer vacancy to become an evidence-based practices coordinator, to focus on primarily the juvenile staff for our department, to help with training and coaching. And so I know this involves a salary ordinance change and deappropriation and appropriation and all of that, but that's what it kind of boils down to. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
And if I may, before questions, clarify, there's already an existing job description for both the juvenile supervising position and an evidence-based practices coordinator. So that's why it's before the entire council and not PAC, because we didn't have to create any job descriptions. And what in essence the request is asking is to deappropriate the line for the juvenile probation officer, and then an in-house transfer request will be made to appropriate the newly created EPB line.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from council? To my left? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
Well, I certainly do appreciate all of the evidence-based practices that come out of your department. And I don't know if you were able to watch last night's meeting of JFAC where a presentation was made. So first of all, I was really welcoming the opportunity to impress on the public just how much your department does in terms of evidence-based practices. And this seems like just a really natural fit. And so my question to you this evening is, based upon what you heard in that presentation or the subsequent conversation, would you add anything to what your department does in terms of services to Monroe County?
I think you did an excellent job with that last night, Peter. I appreciate it. Obviously, you got on our website and took a lot of information from that, but I think you did an excellent job explaining. The probation officer's job has completely changed from when I became a probation officer 38 years ago. And back then, it was really just, I had a caseload of 300, and you did your very best to monitor them. Maybe once a month you might see them and your probationers, and try your best to help refer them to services. But now our probation officers are doing much more with the evidence-based practices, teaching the cognitive behavioral skills and using those tools to help change behavior, change thinking. And it really is a different job than what it was even 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. And we've learned, especially with our researchers that we've been working with, how important it is to measure what we're doing and to figure out is what we think we're doing being effective. And so I'm happy to say with Reducing Revocations Challenge, which you talked about last night, Peter, that we'll be able to get some actual data here for Monroe County about what is effective and the different practices we're going to be changing to see if we're even more effective with not revoking people and sending them to jail or to prison.
Thank you. And just to clarify that program you mentioned, the Reducing Revocations Challenge, if my memory serves correct, we are one of only 5 sites across the United States to be selected for phase 2 of that. Is that correct?
That's correct. So phase 1, it's funded by the Arnold Ventures, and phase 1 involved 10 jurisdictions across the nation to study the causes of filing probation revocations. And this was a very competitive grant process. And we were the smallest county. We had a lot of big counties like Harris County, Texas, and Ramsey County, St. Paul, Minnesota, some really, really big areas. And then for the second phase of it, which is the implementation phase that we're in now, we are definitely the smallest of the 5. But I did want to add one thing is we just found out that our department was chosen to be a national presenter at it's American Probation and Parole Association. It's a national conference. It'll be in New York City in August. And Troy Hatfield from our department is going to be presenting along with our researchers about what we've been able to do with the Reducing Revocations Challenge, and in particular, changing our conditions of probation to be more, I guess you might say, phrased in such a way that they're less punitive and more directive of behavior change. So that's something we're really proud of, that we got chosen to be one of the national presenters at this very large national conference.
Well, that's wonderful. And maybe an EBP coordinator could come with you. We'll see.
Actually, we're taking our other one. She'll be coming. We got some grant money to be able to send a team with us to New York, and our first EBP coordinator she will be coming with us. So we're excited about that, sending a team.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
really, it's always great to hear how well our probation department is doing. I'm going to go to Counselor Deckard, and then we'll go that direction.
Thank you very much. My question is based on something that you said, Lyndon. If you, as always, if you need to get back with me on this, or we need to have a different conversation, but I appreciate what you said. You were saying particularly that if the person, if the person in your all's job, in this job, does the wrong thing, it actually goes a different direction. And with your wisdom and experience, of course, we got a lot of people that Monday morning quarterback these jobs and haven't spent 12 seconds in them. Tell me, can you give me an example what someone could do wrong, or an example sort of what that might look like where it hurts the entire process that the taxpayers are funding?
Exactly. So you've probably heard that we do risk assessments with the Indiana Risk Assessment System, or otherwise known as IRAS. And the thing that probation officers are supposed to do is use that tool to figure out what are the risks that this individual person has that cause their criminal behavior. So you might think most people's criminal behavior is related to alcohol abuse or drug abuse or mental illness, when actually that's not the case. National research has shown that it's thinking errors in criminal thinking and criminal peers cause more of that behavior. So if you focus on the wrong thing, let's just say you decide something easy, which is to get someone employed. In this day and age, there's so many jobs out there, getting someone employed is pretty easy. So if I'm a probation officer and I focus in on getting someone employed and keeping them employed, when they really needed to get into some other sort of treatment for the criminal thinking that's going on in their brain, they might be able to get a job, but they're not going to be able to keep that job. So we can do harm by getting someone into a job when they're not ready to be employed. And so it's really important that there's job readiness that we work on with them. We have community partners we work with. I know that New Leaf, New Life spoke to you all, but we have a partnership with the HIRE program, which is through Work One. And also there's another grant program that we work with. But these kind of programs usually focus on felons because that's where the money is federally. The money's funneled through for felons. Misdemeanors don't get so much attention except for places like New Leaf, New Life who do work. They don't make a distinction between misdemeanors and felons. But that's just one example that if you focus on the wrong thing, you're not giving the person the treatment that they deserve and getting them the right kind of help that they need to keep them from coming back through the system. So that's just one example.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor McKim.
Thank you. So since the topic of the JFAC meetings came up, I guess they've been very interesting, but there were a couple of, there's been a lot of discussion about fees. And I don't, we could spend an hour talking about fees and that's not really germane, but there's something that's just been kind of bothering me. A couple of statements were made that kind of implied that people were kept under the supervision of probation or community corrections, even though they had completed every requirement of the program other than the payment of fees. And so I guess I'd like to know how that works in, what degree of supervision somebody's kept under if their only thing that they're lacking is payment of fees.
Okay, that's a really great question. And that's one of those rumor things that happen out there. Most of our judges, it depends on the case and if there's a plea agreement, but in most cases, the judges give the probation officer the ability to move a client from supervised status to what we call administrative status, where they don't have to come in for appointments. They're finished with what we call their affirmative conditions. So let's say the judge ordered them to get substance abuse treatment and maybe to do some community service work. Once they're finished with those programs successfully, and if the judge has given the probation officer permission, we can administratively move them to a non-reporting status until their probation expires. So that's something that most judges allow the probation officers to do. So fees don't get in the way of that at all. Fees have nothing to do with being able to move to administrative status. The only exception I could say to that is if there is a restitution agreement. If the prosecutor has entered into a restitution agreement because there's been damage to a victim, the person still has to pay on that. But as far as fees, that would never keep somebody from being able to move either off probation or to administrative status. And then as far as ability to pay, we as probation officers have to figure out everybody who walks through our door, what's their ability to pay? Because there are some fees that are statutory. The judge doesn't have a choice. Court costs, for example, the judge has to assess court costs. That's in statute. In felony probation, it says the court shall assess probation fees in felony cases. So the judges, they may have a choice of a range of what they charge, but the statute says shall and not may. So the judge is still, and so the probation officers make individual determinations about what people's ability to pay is. And if someone gets near completing probation and they still haven't paid their fees, the probation officer can file a memo with the court or even ask for a hearing where the judge can do a quick assessment of whether the person had the ability to pay. And then if they find they don't have the ability to pay or didn't, then they can forgive those fees or put them on a civil judgment. And if they can forgive them, if they're legally allowed to, and if they're not, then they could put them on civil judgment for the person to have to pay them before they buy their next house or car or whatever. But it wouldn't stop them from being able to graduate probation or a problem-solving court. Again, all those decisions are made on an individual basis. And nobody gets revoked. I have to say, nobody gets revoked because of not paying their fees. That does not happen.
Thank you very much.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Councilor Hawk. Yes, as we continue to go down history lane, as you did just a minute ago, I think you'll recall years ago, juvenile probation officers, we were concerned we covered juvenile issues under what we used to call the welfare budget. Mm-hmm. And the state was supposed to be providing the caseworkers. And the judges thought we just didn't have enough caseworkers. And so Judge Bridges and others decided we would just put 4 juvenile probation officers under a special section and we were the only ones doing that in the whole state, mm-hmm. as far as I know. So we put 4 in there. And of course, we paid that in our local taxes. Mm-hmm. But then the state decided they would take over that welfare budget, and then they wouldn't cover the juvenile officers. So we were sort of caught in the middle. And I said, and we were right in the middle of budget hearings. And I said to Judge Galvin, I think he might not have been a judge at the time. I said, hey, look at this. It says we can provide the services. And the juvenile probation officers are providing the services. And that's when we were able to save our juvenile probation officers and move them over to that special purpose fund. So sometimes you just have to look at all the different funds and say, how can this money best be used? And if it's more than what is needed at a certain time and it's better used someplace else, if you can move it around, that's what we have to do. And so it worked out as a win for this community. And I just want to say it is because the community was willing to pay the additional taxes, because we had a much higher welfare budget than any other county our size, because we wanted to treat our youth rather than lock them up. So kudos to you and all those that came before you.
Well, thank you, Marty. I appreciate that. And you're talking about our family preservation probation officers. And you're right, we were the only ones in the state. It was just Monroe County. And now the DCS does provide through contract family preservationists, but they're not probation officers, and it's not for probation kids. They provide it for the DCS on the Chin side. So maybe someday we hope to be able to get it on the delinquency side, get that service again. But thank you for mentioning that.
Are there, yes,
I just wanted to add to Counselor McKim's point regarding the fees. There's an Indiana Code section 353823 that sets out specifically the violations of probation and how the court handles it. And in that code section, it specifies that failure to pay fines or costs required as a condition of probation cannot be the sole basis for someone being committed to the DOC or the sole basis for revocation of probation.
wow, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from council? All right, is there any public comment on this item? And seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
And that brings us to item number 9 on our agenda.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request for the creation of a new account line in Fund 9111-9624, 1503 Youth Service Bureau Grant, account line 30028, training and travel, and to simultaneously approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $1,577.64 in the services category.
Second.
Great.
Good evening, counselors.
Hello.
My name is Vanessa Schmidt. I'm from the Youth Services Bureau. We were here in April to appropriate the initial grant fund amount, and since then they have awarded us an additional $1,500.7764, and we would just ask that that be put into a training and travel line.
Sounds good. Are there questions or comments from council?
Congratulations.
Any others? No. Well, congratulations. Yeah, this is pretty easy. Any public comments on appropriating the grant funds? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith. And now we are at item number 10, Parks and Recreation.
Council, I move to approve the Parks and Recreation Department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0803, General Parks and Recreation, in the amount of $5,300 in the capital category.
Second.
Welcome, Ms. Whitmer.
I was so excited to talk about toilets that I got up here early. I'm asking for additional appropriation of $5,300 for the purchase of 2 Polygon ADA porta toilets. Keep in mind, I don't know if you have access to our county general equipment line, but we have $1,718 in that, but county legal has informed me that we can't use that for any other purpose since it was encumbered for 2 mowers and we came in under budget. So in your mind, you could think $5,300 minus $1,718 because we will be giving that back to you. It will revert back to the county coffers. So keep that in mind. Might be a little less than you're thinking. We have 2 porta toilets right now, one at Loesch Road Trailhead for the Cars Farm Greenway and one at Sheriff's Substation on the Limestone Greenway. And we wanted to try those out first before we came back to ask for additional restrooms because we wanted to make sure it was working for the public. And it is wildly popular. We have them pumped once a week. They're cleaned. We have park staff that checks up on them also. So it's not the porta johns that you see at Memorial Stadium for a football game. These are nicely kept. They're extremely roomy. They're not the ADA ones that you rent. I don't know if Ms. Wiltz has gotten to see them because you're pretty good an expert on ADA issues. They're pretty big. We want these 2 new toilets, one on the Cars Farm Greenway near the Bobcat of Ellettsville. We've been asking for, the public has requested toilet facilities. And I believe this is the least expensive way to provide that. The other one will go to Flatwoods Park, and it will be also with the new restrooms. So when the new restrooms get closed down for the winter, this restroom will stay up throughout the winter. So because we have a brand new playground that is wildly popular. And we want to make sure if you're out there playing in November that the children have somewhere to go to the restroom. And we want these 2 toilets to come on one truck because it's less money. And we want to get the one restroom out to Flatwoods Park this fall if possible. Are there any questions about porta toilets?
I'll start to my right. Are there questions or comments?
People are so excited about Flatwoods Park. They are just thrilled with it. One of the things they are concerned about, though, is that when it's really a hot day, that sun gets that equipment so hot that it burns the children's skins. So is there going to be something, some kind of cover or something? Because somebody said they thought there was going to be.
No, there will be no cover over the playground. That would cost literally $1 million or $500,000. So we can always put up little signs that say, when the weather is getting hot, please be careful, surfaces are hot. We will be planting a couple more trees, and we do have shade area on the outside of the playground, but not over the playground itself. It's so large.
Well, they're excited about it, and I guess someday a tree will grow to provide shade. Is that
Yes.
in the works? Or?
Yes, but it still will not, the playground's so large that even when we do grow the trees and we have little shade areas, it won't go over the top of the playground, unfortunately. So we can put up little signs that just say, be aware when the temperature is getting up 90 degrees, things are going to be hot to the touch. And there's just nothing else that we can do about that. Now, another exciting thing in Flatwoods, in 2024, we're going to be having 4 new family restroom buildings there, where we hope to renovate the basketball court and to add 3 pickleball courts to Flatwoods. So Flatwoods Park is getting a complete facelift in the next year or 2. And it's a very popular park, I believe.
Well, I know that some of the folks have just decided to change their schedule, and they're just going to go a little earlier before it gets so hot on there.
I would suggest that, and it's with anything. The temperatures are getting hotter, and when you touch things, metal, obviously, and some turf, it's going to be hotter. I apologize, but there's nothing we can do about it.
The sun does make things get hot, that's for sure. But I just wanted to share that with you because they are excited. They are excited about it.
Well, excellent.
Thank you.
And Marty, when you want to come out and play, I can go out there with you and we can go and play on the swings.
I support clean toilets.
Toilets.
I'm also
radical.
I support
We're a hard
accessible
position.
toilets. I appreciate that these are all listed as ADA compliant and encourage you to continue the practice of making sure that ADA compliant facilities are on ADA accessible routes. So make sure that there's a route to and from.
Oh, we have our playground engineer here also, and he is making sure that everything is up to code and even above what we need to do. So.
You guys are doing a great job. I appreciate it. Just had to get my plug in there. Councilor Deckard?
Thank you very much. As I was telling Ms. Whitburn an email a while back on this, I'd be a hypocrite to be against this because I'm one of those people that do not necessarily think about such things, but I use those trails a lot and those park facilities a lot because the doctor said I need to be doing that altogether more. And this is just one of those things that when people need that, they need that, and they do need it to be accessible, as Councilor Wiltz is saying. I'm excited about all the energy and buzz that's going on just generally around all these developments. As I've said before, if we look at the West Side trail system and the park system, to think that all of that could be connected that way is just huge. And I just want to say hats off to everybody that worked on it, on the park side, on the council side in general. This is just, it's good stuff. Porta potties are good headaches to have. So thank you.
Counselor Iverson.
Just real quick, I don't want to beat a dead drum here, but well, that's not a weird thing to say. But on page 37 of today's packet, you included pictures of these toilets.
Yes.
And I just think it's worth looking at them because they are worth every single penny. And I'm really happy that we have pictures of the facilities they're going to be putting out there.
Unfortunately, this is a worldwide company located in the state of Indiana, so we are very fortunate.
Excellent.
We can get parts easily.
That's great. Any other council comment or questions?
I just wonder if Cheryl might have additional hollyhocks that she might share with the Parks Department, because that is traditional, you know. You plant the hollyhock around the porta pots.
I have lots of flowers, but darn no hollyhocks. But I'll share with Parks what I have.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item? I can't believe it, but there is not. In that case, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. That brings us then to, where are we on?
The discussion.
Item B.
Item
Cars
B.
Farm Athletic Complex.
Sorry.
Council, I wish to open for discussion, a conversation about the Karst Athletic Complex's capital improvement needs.
Second.
Literally not there.
Yeah, it's not on yours.
All right. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about the background for this?
Well, I am here to discuss synthetic turf fields for the Karst Athletic Complex. I have brought 4 experts with me. A youth soccer expert, 2 tourism experts, a field engineer. Therefore, I will speak briefly because I believe that you received my 2-page summary, and some of you might have listened in on the commissioner's longer explanation of synthetic fields. We are all here to answer any of your questions that you may have. The Parks Board's #1 improvement priority is 2 synthetic turf fields with LED lights. I also recommend that natural infill with a shock pad be considered. Synthetic turf fields will increase tourism opportunities, increase playability, and help keep the remaining grass fields in better condition. I would like to ask Mr. Malone to come up to speak for the Cutters.
Good evening, Council. Pleasure to be here again. It's been a little while. I'm here, Louis Malone, Executive Director of Cutters Soccer Club, your local soccer club focused on positive youth development and kind of breaking down the pay-to-play model, making sure everybody can be included. We are strongly in favor of this proposal. Karst Farm Park has been our home for years and years, and we're so happy to have it. But it's aging a bit. And so to begin that process of rejuvenation, I support whatever Kelly wants to do in this regard. She's talked to me quite a bit about it, and we are in support. There was some concern, I will say, by our board about turf, just generally in Bloomington, and what that looks like. The natural infill is a great option, and it will go a long way to, the engineer will speak more about this, but the entire process that they have planned out potentially to rejuvenate our park and to make that a place where we can have tournaments again, where we can have more play days, where we aren't going back to the Parks Board occasionally. It's very rare, but to say, hey, what's going on here, because we haven't been able to play this spring, which happened this past fall. We are in favor of it. It's good for our kids to be involved. They build social competencies, they build physical competencies, they build all psycho-emotional competencies. I'm going back to my old role. And what sports bring to the community We also, as a club, we focus on inclusion, as I said. So far this year, I've given out $40,000 to $50,000 in scholarships so that everybody can get to play. Continuing to use public parks means that we can focus our energies on raising money to get more kids involved instead of raising money to go develop something else. And I love the partnership we've developed. We just signed a 5-year deal to continue using Cars Farm Park, and we strongly support what the Parks Department has put forward in terms of improving the conditions of play. And I'm happy to answer any questions before we move on to somebody else.
Thank you. Appreciate those words of support. Are there questions for Mr. Malone?
No, I saw this presentation when you gave it to the commissioners, I think during a work session. And I know there were some people that had some concerns thinking that if they fell, it might hurt a lot or something of the sort. But what I wanted to say is I'm just so grateful that this community is realizing how important it is to support our youth in any way we can, mm-hmm. whether it's with the soccer fields or with 4-H or what we need to do with the youth shelter and so forth. So thank you for your years of service and your continued service to the youth of this community.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. My oldest played in Cutters, and 2 smaller ones want to join in the ranks as well. So my question would be, you mentioned earlier we just heard about, tournaments and things like that mm-hmm. that are happening. I guess, how many tournaments a year are you having currently, and how many, I guess right now, are you not having due to the field conditions?
I would say Cutter Soccer Club, I'll let you speak or Pete speak to other things that might
okay.
happen. For Cutter Soccer Club, we had been having the Jerry Yeagley Classic, named after one of the famous people here. And we had to stop, not only because of field conditions. We were getting some complaints from people, why are we traveling in here to play and then the fields might not be what we'd like for them to be, but for a variety of reasons. So it's not entirely that. But right now, if you're going to have a tournament that is really bringing in a good number of teams, over 100 teams from around the Midwest primarily, you need to have guaranteed fields that are going to be able to be played on. That's pretty routine. And most top teams or top tournaments want to have turf fields for those championship games, those games where technique really, I don't want to get into the performance side of it so much, but it really comes to play. So it really makes this an opportunity to be a magnet, not just for Cutter Soccer Club, for other opportunities, sports opportunities. And I know that because of we are in between Evansville and Indianapolis. There are a lot of people that like to play neutral sites games here too. And it really just would benefit all of those people seeking to use Bloomington as a place to play soccer.
Thank you. It just seems like an investment of this is definitely something that is necessary and vital. Not only does it help, as Councilor Hawk was saying, in terms of kids and trying to, keep them active and doing a lot of other things with, this program. It seems like an investment of this would help local economy as well. It would be smart to do something such as this. So thank you very much.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor McKim.
Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Malone. Good to see you back in your new role. We missed seeing you for YSB. But this may be more of a question for Ms. Whitmer, but I guess can you just remind us of what the the bottom line cost of your recommended alternative is?
It's $4,111,000.
4.4 million.
Yeah.
And what all does that include?
That will include 2 synthetic turf fields with LED lights, and I believe where's Andy? And I believe that would include the natural infield.
I know that we're not, actually approving anything or choosing funding right now, but I definitely think this is an appropriate use for food and beverage, for the county portion of food and beverage tax. I remember when we were first discussing imposing that, and we specifically cited the soccer fields as a potential expenditure on the county side of our share. So I feel like this would be fulfilling what we told the public we'd be considering a very long time ago.
And I am sure there are a variety of mechanisms, funding mechanisms that the council and commissioners would need to talk together. It could be food and beverage, it could be a combination of a bond, American Rescue, CUME CAP. I'm sure there's others I haven't thought of.
Yeah, I mean, the
so
food and
many.
beverage wouldn't be enough for the entire project. Maybe just half of it, but
If there's no, I mean, we will answer any questions anytime, but we have Mike McAfee and Pete Nelson from Visit Bloomington that might answer more of your questions.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
I thought that was him walking over there.
Good evening, Council. Nice to see you. My name is Mike McAfee. I'm the Executive Director at Visit Bloomington.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Scream at us.
Scream?
Yes, that's lovely.
That's better?
Yeah. I don't know what the deal is.
Hello, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you for considering this important project. We really appreciate it. I know it's probably been 15 years ago that since I've been talking with Jeff about this in different capacities over the years and all of that. But sports tourism, domestically, it is approximately a little less than $100 billion annually are spent on sports tourism in the country. Creates about 650,000 jobs. Locally, out of our 2.5 million annual visitors, about 20% of them are coming here to either participate in or watch a sporting event. It helps create 2,000 of about 7,000 hospitality-related jobs here. Turf sports, soccer, football, they're the #1 sports tourism generators in the country by far. Soccer is what they play, football is what people go and watch. We sort of dabble in those here in Monroe County, as you know, in lots of capacities, but certainly we're a sports town. We are known as a sports town because we're home of the Indiana Hoosiers and because of the rich local tradition throughout the county of the high schools and competing in sports. We are always going to be a popular destination for sporting events that we're talking about because of that, because of Indiana University, because kids and people want to come here and be a part of that. But we are certainly, and don't get me wrong, we are lucky to have Cars Farm. We're lucky to have Twin Lakes. We're lucky to have the facilities on campus that we very seldomly get to use when the stars align and the dates work and we've got rooms and the group wants to come on those dates and the university is okay with it and they want that event on their campus. Well, we can sometimes use a facility there, but it's not as often as people think. Those are booked with student activities. That's what they're there for. They're really good at maximizing the use of those. So we do not have access to those facilities very often. What we do have, our best luck is with non-traditional sports, aquatics, track and field, those types of things. They're really hungry and going after those types of events. But when it comes to turf outdoor fields and things like that, not as much. And you know it, Grand Park, Deaconess down in Evansville. I mean, those are amusement sports parks. And so even hey, listen, 2 turf fields is going to change our competitive landscape. It will get our foot in the door in so many ways, and we can fall back on those things we talked about in Monroe County where people want to come here. But we certainly, it isn't build these 2 fields and we're going to steal all of Grand Park and Deaconess's business, but it'll definitely allow us to compete with those and do a lot more than we can now. Because right now, in many ways, we don't get a chance even to bid on those events because we don't have those synthetic turf fields that they want to play those championship level matches on. Visit Bloomington. We promote the county to leisure, meetings, and sporting event tourism. We touch 30 to 40 sporting events a year. It could be from hospitality for coaches, dealing with hotel rooms, to even producing the event itself. We do all kinds of stuff like that. Pete Nelson is here. He's our sports development director. He used to be the lacrosse coach at IU. He is an expert in the state, in this industry, and I'm going to let him talk. And Jennifer, that's a great question. He's going to address that specifically, some of those events that we're talking about. But I'm going to turn it over to Pete, and I'm going to stick around, happy to answer any questions I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Council, thank you. As Mike touched on, I'm the Director of Sports Development for Visit Bloomington, have been for a little bit over 8 years now with the organization. And I have been able to make many connections with different tournament directors and event owners and things like that over the years, and had them come out and look at our fields for possible opportunities. And at the end of the day, kind of like Lewis had already touched on, you know, they want those championship style fields. That's why Grand Park built what they did. That's why Deaconess added the turf fields like they did. But mainly the big thing for them are major rain events and weather related issues where they have 100 or 120 teams coming from all over the country or all over the Midwest. And by adding those 2 turf fields, it limits the opportunities for them to have to cancel or send teams home without being able to play their tournament when they've already taken in all those entry fees and things like that. So that's a major thing that I hear a lot of times with the people that I meet with, is that with even just 2 turf fields, obviously more is great, but even with 2, they can shorten the schedule, play later into the night with the lights, start earlier in the morning, and if there's no lightning, they can play right through that rain. So that really helps them limit their chances of having to cancel that. So that's kind of the biggest thing for them as what they're looking for. Some examples that may fit our community and our complex that I've already discussed opportunities with in the future and have maybe had out for site visits, but USA Ultimate Collegiate Club Regionals are actually going to be in Grand Park this year. That would be a perfect fit for us, and something that, like Mike said, that we would have an opportunity to go after and really bid on with the upgraded facilities. Bless you. The U.S. Quidditch Great Lakes Regionals we've hosted in the past. They would love to be back here, and the same thing goes. They're concerned about a rain event like we've had in the past where they've had to cancel or extend hours late into the night because they couldn't do it, things like that. 3v3 Live Soccer Nationals is an organization we already have some relationship with. National Horseshoe Pitchers Association has approached us before as well. And then as Mike kind of touched on, I was the head coach of the men's lacrosse club team at IU for 10 years. So I know firsthand, we use the Cars Farm facilities quite often. And I know that the men's and women's rugby team, the men's and women's lacrosse teams, men's and women's ultimate frisbee, there's a shortage of field space for all those club sports. And I know that every time that we hosted a game, we had teams from Illinois or Michigan or Ohio coming and staying overnight, and then we'd go play at Cars because the facilities at IU may not have been available for our club sports. So those are some good examples. And then as Mike touched on, as I've kind of discussed, I'm still very connected in the lacrosse world as well. So I know that Trilogy Lacrosse is a national brand that wants to be in Bloomington and wants to do an event here, but needs a little bit higher quality facility, along with another group called Lacrosse America, which is actually ran by an IU alumni, and he does tournaments all over the country. They were in Chicago this past weekend. They're in South Bend every year. They're in Louisville, and he wants to do something in Bloomington very bad. So there's some things that I think that we actually have an opportunity for if we were able to make some of these improvements. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Questions for any of our presenters? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
Kelly, did you need to introduce some more speakers? I can wait until. Yeah, tell you what, I'll wait until all the speakers have presented.
All right.
Bledsoe Rickert Cooper James Engineering is our field engineer group, and it's Andy Knutz. And he's going to talk to you about what is in field, what's the pros and cons, and anything else that you have a question about synthetic turf. Andy's the man.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I'm Andy Knust. I'm civil engineer with Bledsoe Rickert Cooper James, and we've had the pleasure of working with Kelly and the Parks Department and the Parks Board for a number of years now. When we've developed a plan specifically focused on improvements that are needed at the Karst Athletic Complex. And as you probably know, there's 12 fields at the Karst Athletic Complex. All of them are grass now. Many of them were installed more than 30 years ago. Some of them have irrigation and drainage, some don't. But the fields that do have irrigation and drainage, they're getting old. And the drainage systems are, silting in and they're not draining as well anymore. So, the playing conditions over time are deteriorating a little bit, and it takes more effort for parks staff to keep those fields in great condition. So I see, as from the perspective of maintaining those fields and improving the conditions there, I see that the synthetic turf fields are really a key to improving conditions across the whole complex, because the synthetic turf, as others have said already, you can, the day after those fields are installed, we can start playing on them, and you can keep playing on them for 10 years before the carpet needs to be replaced, like continuously, rain or shine. Like if it's below freezing, the field gets kind of hard and you may not want to play then, but otherwise, like, game on. So that's really the beauty of the synthetic turf fields. And by putting in the synthetic turf, it will allow other projects to occur elsewhere on the other 10 fields that are there at the Cars Farm Park. Like there's a lot of irrigation systems that need upgrading or improving. There's drainage systems that need upgrading and improving. And when you do those kind of projects, cutting trenches across the grass, like it takes time for natural grass to regenerate after you cut a big trench across it and run equipment over it. So by putting in these synthetic turf fields, it will allow all these other projects to happen and give those natural turf fields some time to rest after these other drainage and irrigation projects are completed. So that's why I think that it's kind of urgent, really, for the synthetic turf project to go forward soon, because it'll help improve conditions across the entire complex. And we've talked a little about the natural infill material, which I think is a great thing that has been developing over the last few years. Really, synthetic turf, AstroTurf has been around since the 1960s, and the standard material, like for infill, so there's like the carpet basically is the AstroTurf that you think of, but there's also the infill material is another really important component of the whole synthetic turf system. And what the infill does is it kind of fills in the gaps between these fibers of the carpet and helps those fibers to stand up, and importantly absorbs some of the impact that, when a player hits the ground, or when the ball hits the ground, when players' feet hit the ground, all of that is impact on the surface, and the infill material is largely what absorbs that impact. So since the 1990s, the industry standard has been to use granulated rubber for the infill material mixed with sand. And the rubber obviously absorbs a lot of that impact. But there's some concerns over recent years about what's in that rubber, because largely it's generated from recycled tires, which it's a great use for recycling, but there's heavy metals in the tires, there's PAHs, there's aromatic hydrocarbons and other volatile organics and stuff in that rubber material. So there's some concern about exposure to that. I will say there's EPA studies and CDC studies right now into exposure to that rubber material, and so far there's no conclusive link to any detrimental health effects as a result of exposure to the rubber, but there's reason for concern there. And one thing that we can definitely say is that this granulated rubber material is, it gets tracked off of the fields and it winds up, it's messy. Yeah, it winds up in the parking lot, it gets in the storm drain, runs off into the creek, and then, that's a big source of microplastic pollution that we talk about in our oceans and so forth today. So the natural infill materials, there are some really neat alternatives that are coming out, like using cork instead of the rubber, or There's a proprietary product now called Brockfill that is being installed in Indiana, actually at Rose-Hulman. They've just put in a new field with this Brockfill material, and it's made from wood, and it's specially processed to remove like splinters and dust, and you wind up with these rounded wood particles that are mixed with sand and then used as the infill material. And there's also like coconut fiber, which I think is really interesting because you kind of work that into the fibers of the carpet. And so there's a number of these natural, organic infill materials that can be used, and they don't have all the rubber and other possible chemical concerns going on there. But one thing that I should say is that these natural materials, they don't absorb impact quite as well as you would with the rubber. So they often, well, actually they all recommend that you put in a shock pad underneath the carpet. So that's just like a closed cell foam pad, which really absorbs impact consistently, across. It would give you really consistent conditions across the entire field surface, and will absorb impact for like decades. Some of these shock pads have a manufacturer warranty of like 25, 28, 30 years. So the shock pad will continue to work for a long time and provide that shock absorbency in combination with a natural infill material. And so that's what I'm recommending in this, with this report here. That's what we would get for this $4 million. I know it sounds like a lot, but it would be a really great thing for the Karst Athletic Complex. And we'd be putting in kind of the state-of-the-art materials for the synthetic turf system. And we haven't mentioned yet the lights. Like that would also include LED lighting for the whole facility, so we can play in the dark. And if you have any other questions about the concept design or what's proposed thus far, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions to my left? Yes, Council Munson.
Hi there. Can you tell us about the durability of the shock pad? Isn't it going to release chemicals and contribute products to the water?
Well, the shock pad goes in underneath the carpet, so it's like an underlay material, and so the people on the surface of the field wouldn't really be exposed to it.
Okay.
But when it rains, like the water percolates through the field, and
Right.
so water goes right through that shock pad. As far as I'm aware, like the shock pad material is really resilient, so it doesn't break down very much over time.
Right. You said 25 years or so.
Yeah, I think there would be a really minimal amount of like leaching of any chemicals
Okay.
of concern out of it.
But it is made of rubber.
Yeah, or like polystyrene foam. It's a synthetic material.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question on cost.
Yeah.
The number of 4.4 million is put out as a cost estimate, and also the improvements are for 1 or 2 synthetic fields. Does the 4.4 million apply to 2 fields?
Yes, that would be for both full-size soccer fields. Yes.
And with the lights as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Well-
if the budget constraints require that we cut that back to 1 synthetic field, it'll be a little more than half the cost.
Yeah.
To just
Okay.
put in 1 field, because you get a little more economies of scale, I guess, if you
Exactly.
do both fields at the same time.
But knowing how many, knowing the demand out there for fields that can be played on.
Yeah, from
Certainly want to
from
have 2
Lewis
if
and-
possible.
Yeah, there's definitely demand, I think, for both fields.
So I have another question, and it's for Mr. Malone.
And Cheryl, also with that, is that it's actually going to be sewn in the lines of an athletic field, 3 different sizes. So it's just not one field. We can cut this down and play any kind of sport hardly, or, we can play 2 games, 3 games. So it's just not one field, one group at a time.
Okay.
Multiple groups can play.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello there. Welcome with your new role here. I wanted to ask if the Cutters organization contributes to the covering the cost of maintaining the fields at Cars Farm Park.
That is a conversation we're currently having. We are committed to committing more money than we currently just did a 5-year deal that increases a certain amount each year. And then we understand that with this, if there's a capital expense fund that needs to be filled for the maintenance, then we would be contributing to that as well, potentially. But that is still to be discussed. But we have committed in principle to providing some funds for that.
I'm very glad to hear that and hope to hear more. Thank you.
Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you. Well, I'm very much in favor of this project and have been for, since I first heard about it. That was many, many years ago. I hope we can have some progress and move along, because they're not just 2 fields that need attention. There are additional ones. Thank you.
Counselor Iverson.
I think it's time for me to make my comments. I think I'm just such an avid fan of soccer. I played it, I watch it, I am badgering my kids into playing it. I love soccer. And just, I heard your presentations at the commissioners meeting last week, and just I'm really on board with it. But what I want to encourage you is, I understand that we're doing 2 fields, or the request is for 2 fields, but I think I'm really kind of on the same wavelength with Mike, that we need to have a competitive edge. We need to make sure that we are keeping up, not even keeping up, but we're leading the field in this area. Bloomington is such a wonderful place, and Monroe County is so special that it just makes a ton of sense that you would couch this request in a tourism way. That just makes so much sense to me. And so, as we're thinking about these fields, I'm starting to think not in terms of, well, are we going to approve this next year? Are we going to approve this year? I'm trying to think where we're going to be in 10 years. Where can we be in this? And so what I did is I started looking at your strat plans. And the parks strategic plan, recommendation number 9 on page 50 of your strategic plan, is to create or designate a level playing field for lacrosse and other non-soccer activities. And it just seems like this is a start, like Councilor Munson just said, but there's so much for us to do, so far for us to go. And then, for Visit Bloomington, your strategic plan, I think this is absolutely key. On page 7 of your strategic plan, number 3 is support the Monroe County Convention Center expansion. Check. We're moving as fast as we can towards that. But number 4 is support development or expansion of sports facilities that can attract championship level youth sporting events. That's where we need to be. That's my opinion. And I'm really excited for the future. I'm really excited to see more visits from you. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited, as you can tell.
We can tell.
It is exciting.
I don't know.
I'm excited just sitting next to you.
I love soccer so much, and it just soccer and tourism. How can you go wrong? And Monroe County is a great place. I don't know. I'm done.
Well, if I could just respond briefly to that, looking further into the future, the conceptual plan we've laid out and the proposal before you today is to fund 2 soccer fields, full-size fields, which, as Kelly pointed out, can be subdivided into smaller youth fields. Anyway, the conceptual design definitely leaves room for 2 more fields immediately to the north of fields 9 and 11. We can, if the money's there, we could expand that to 4 fields real easily.
Well, and we look to you all to tell us, where do we need to be? Where do we need to be?
Well, we would love 4 fields.
Okay.
2 fields are great.
Let me just be
One
really
field is
clear.
lovely.
Let me just be really clear that everything I just said was Peter Iverson's opinion.
I do not have the authority to appropriate all of council's money to soccer. Yeah.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Counselor Deckard, you have your hand raised for a comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm laughing at the comments. I always hear from people that it's county council to talk people down. Now we're talking. Here's what I wanted to say on this is I appreciate the information that's being brought to us so we can figure out how we do pay for this. This feeds into a couple comments I'll just generally make, and I don't know if it helps that, but I'll do my best. People want to be, and I often say this when we're talking about the convention center, so some of you are going to hear this again. People want to be in our community. They want to come to our community. That's a wonderful thing. These are good headaches and discussions to have. But that does also mean that we have to live into that, and we have to lean hard into that at bodies like ours at providing for these things. The second thing I'll say is, and generally why I am supportive of us figuring out this funding. I don't think the question is about us doing this or doing something that Parks is telling us to, and our other friends that are coming in. I think the question is, what do we specifically do? And we rely on their expertise to help us figure that out. But just generally, the other thing I'll add is a lot of times I hear kind of notions about whether it's about fire or health service or you name it, about how things have been. And you can really see the vision on where things are going. I mean, when I was born a kid, you probably would have told my family that there'd be a trail that runs up and down the west side connecting Eltville to Cars Park. They probably said, well, you're out of your mind. But the reality is things like this, people wanting to go to Cars, that's a beautiful thing. People coming to us saying, make it better on the fields. I think it's awesome. So we just have to figure out the mechanism. I like what Councilor McKim was saying, because my gosh, to feed into food and beverage dollars and tourism and to use the money that we've been collecting this long, I think that kind of speaks to me. Along with, if we can get the convention center done, we'll have it over. And I think we had a good victory on that last week. So anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but again, and this is for any department, really, what do we need to do to be the serve into the community that people come to, they want to be in and live into that good headache. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Deckard. Go ahead, Councilor Crossley.
I just had a logistical, maybe engineering question. If the stars and stripes were aligned on the soccer fields in your favor, how long does a project like this normally take from start to completion?
Well, just speaking about the construction of it, this could realistically be completed if we begin construction at the end of next spring soccer season, we take fields 9 and 11, we could get it done before the fall soccer season. Like next summer, this could be built in a matter of 3-4 months. Yeah.
That's amazing. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is as soon as it's done, the carpet's rolled out, there's a lot of drainage in here and grading work that needs to happen, conduits go in the ground, concrete, drainage and infill. But once it's all done, put the infill on,
ready to roll,
grade it out, and then we can play.
And in the context of, in 2019, when I started on council and went to park board meetings, you presented on this topic, I remember. So, it's not that these things just come off like that. You've been designing and planning, and you have a lot of detail already figured out. So.
Yeah. If the design goes, or if, the will is there and the funds are allocated so that we can really get a set of plans out to bid for contractors to bid on, if we could get started on that process, we could realistically get a set of plans out to bid and get construction started, next spring.
Wow.
We're on track for that.
Are there other comments or questions from council to my right? No? Okay. I very much support moving forward with this. Obviously, we're not voting right now, and we have discussions with commissioners if we're using other certain funds.
So what do we need to do as the Parks Department, or you in the commissioners talk about funding, or how do you want to? I don't want to miss a deadline.
The commissioners and council need to discuss, and so that'll start with Trent and I will meet in a week and a half, 2 weeks, with one of the commissioners, because we have regular communications meetings, and we'll bring it up and we'll go from there as to where the whole bodies might need to get together. But I agree. I mean, with the food and beverage tax was just starting back in 2019 when I first heard about this, and they were mentioned to me in the same breath. And I think it's a natural fit. I really do see how it's beneficial for kids and families, but on a much bigger level as well. So I'm optimistic.
Okay, so you don't need anything from me. I don't need to remind anyone.
You want to check back in? Check back in with me at the beginning of August to find out if we've had some conversations yet.
Yeah. Just quick question. I'm sorry. Do you have I think you do have something sort of like a one-pager that describes essentially your preferred proposal with bottom line and what it includes?
And you mean the proposal of the actual cost, or?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
I'm saying a one-pager.
Oh, yes, we have a one-pager.
So that everybody's discussing the same thing.
And I think you probably got the BRCJ report. It's on page 10 is the summary of the amounts, and then there's more details in the back of the packet.
Yeah.
So it's already done.
Right. Again, I'm saying one page, not
There's
10.
one page. We're good at one page. And also Mr. Iverson, since he does you all got this photo, I believe. This is it. Look at that field. There's a big soccer field and other ones lined up. This is that times 2. So I will check back with President Wiltz to see where we're going. I don't want to miss any deadlines. So please give me a call if I need to do something or I need to bring Andy back to any of the conversations or anyone else. So you don't need anything else from us tonight?
We do not. I do not think we do. I think, I'll look at page 10.
Page 10 is the one-page
and
summary.
And I will, let you know if I think something else needs to come together. Is there something down
And I can
there?
give you a hard copy if anyone wants a hard copy.
I mean,
I just mean, if somebody wants to put a motion on the floor at some point in time to help you out, they can't do it with this much. They need to do it with this much.
Oh, yeah, we have one page, yes. We
That's
can write
why
whatever
we're
you
saying
like.
one page.
Yes.
do you understand what Councilor Hawk is saying? A one-page summary would be very useful for us.
For the motion?
For moving forward to getting to a motion, which is what we build these things on.
Do you all have to figure out the funding before that?
We'll
Put
talk
down
with
what
you.
you have. Just
Okay.
You don't worry about that part.
All right, I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. All right, I'll get with you all and we'll figure it out. How's that? Or Trent.
Yeah.
Trent's assigned to us.
Yes, and he did write, I think in the chat, that you should contact him as well. So he can work with you.
We'll work on this. You can yell at me anytime.
Yeah, he said yell.
Good.
Excellent. And if
Yeah, you're
anyone needs
supposed
a
to yell
hard
at him.
copy of anything, I will give it to them. Okay, we're good?
You're good.
All right, thank you all. Have a
Thank you
good
all for
evening.
being here.
Kelly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right. I'm gonna check multiple copies of this agenda. Make sure I got this right now. We are now on item 11. Thank you.
Council, I move to approve the auditor's request to amend the 2023 salary ordinance to add account line 16800, transitional temporary training position in Fund 1000-0002, general auditor.
second.
Okay, we don't seem to have anyone from the auditor's office here. So, Ms. Turner-King, do you have information for us?
Correct. The auditor's staff is currently at an auditor's conference, and they requested that I present this agenda item on their behalf. In requesting that, I was also advised that they'd like to amend their request or clarify their request. And so I'm just going to read the proposed language.
Okay.
The auditor's office is amending this request to request the approval of a transitional training line in the general fund to support the payroll for training of a new general ledger manager. The current general ledger manager has accepted a position outside of Monroe County government. The individual who currently fills accounts payable administrator will be moved to the general ledger manager vacancy. The auditor's office is requesting the approval of a transitional training line to allow the current general ledger manager to train the new person. This arrangement will allow for a smooth transition of responsibilities and ensure all auditor's office functions continue efficiently. It is proposed that there will be a 2-week overlap in the position. An additional appropriation is not necessary at the time to accommodate this request, as they believe they can do in-house transfers. So I think the clarification is in the agenda, it says to compensate 2 employees correctly. And what really is happening is they're just asking for a transitional line to compensate the outgoing general ledger manager while there's an overlap in that position.
Thank you. That makes sense. And it was confusing. So, yeah. Councilor Iverson?
So do I need to amend the agenda that I just read?
Motion, yeah.
Motion, excuse me. We did ask for to add an account line, a transitional temporary training line.
I don't think we need to amend the motion because we're still asking for, or the auditor's office is still asking for the creation of a transitional training line. The amendment or clarification is that it's just to compensate the one person who's doing the training rather than the 2 people described in the packet.
Sure. Okay, great.
And did we get a second? I might have jumped in. I forgot. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions about this? Yeah.
I feel like we've always approved in recent past these types of, and we pretty much said we're blanket approving them, haven't we? I mean, we've made that statement that we support these overlaps for training purposes. Is there any reason why this is different?
I concur. I believe that we agreed as a group to notify the department heads, just wherever they just need to add this transitional line in every department. We're not going to put money in there. It's only for transitional.
Well, if they add the line, then we don't have to put money in there. They can move money.
They can move it around as they need it, or if they need money, they can come and ask for it. But give them that line so that they're prepared to move forward, instead of having to come and ask for a line each time. Because it's not going to be used for, they're not going to move money to the transitional line for something else. They wouldn't be allowed to use it for something else.
Well, right, although I think there has been some confusion as to how, and maybe it's semantics, because I know that I was asking for clarification about this particular agenda item in the, because of the timing of when people were being paid in the same position. Essentially, this is to be used when after someone has been promoted into or hired into a new position to allow an overlap. And if that person is still in a different position and hasn't moved to the new position yet, I don't know what technically the difference is, but it's different than having someone, having one position overlapped by 2 people. So in a previous proposal for this type of transitional training line, the request was worded in a way that made it sound as though we were increasing the pay for someone who was staying in their current position while training for a new position that they would be getting. And that's a little different. Does that make sense? Am I, okay, somebody say that they understand what I'm saying.
But you would still have the transition line, and then if they wanted to fund it, they'd have to ask for the money to fund it. Right?
Well,
whatever.
That doesn't make it, I mean, they can just do, if we give everybody a line in the budget, then they won't come to us to ask for it, right? So this is just that process of them asking, and we have to create the line because we haven't put that into the budgets, because all of these discussions have been.
I'm wondering also if it's a person that's been around for a while, what line do they pay out, because they have to pay them out if they have built up compensation time and all of the other things that you have to pay them out because they've earned it. And we used to say they had to come to the council to do that so that we could keep track of how much overtime people were putting in. We're not doing that anymore. So
Well, I think we
where are
put
they
some
paying
stuff
it out?
into policy to guide that. We've amended the policy for paying out to clarify some things, right?
We did amend a policy for payout of comp time.
Yeah. Regardless, the item before us seems pretty clear-cut with the explanation, and I don't have a problem with it at all. My question was, does anybody else have comments? No? All right, great. Is there any public comment on this item? We scared everyone away.
I think it was my exuberance on soccer.
Seeing no public comment, could we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Welts?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Great, thank you. We now have a presentation from our agenda item number 12 is American Rescue Plan Act Fund. And we've had several council members working with people in the community to talk about needs and possibilities surrounding how we implement ARPA projects. And so I'd like to invite Chancellor Coyne from Ivy Tech to present to us on this item. And I believe he is on Zoom. Welcome.
Good evening.
Oh, and I see you've got several people with you. That's fantastic. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, and we can look at your presentation, look at that, popping right up. And Councilor Munson,
Yeah.
I know you've been working with them on this. If you wanted to say a word, you could do that as well.
I want to thank you all for coming tonight to make a presentation of your proposal, and we all look forward to hearing about it. Our ARPA proposals have been discussed over the last 5 months?
Yeah, more than
7?
that. Yeah.
And it is a process that is still ongoing for us, but we are nearing the time when we need to make final decisions and wrap things up. And we have a process that must be followed very carefully because we have to fund projects in certain financial categories, and we must have advertisements for the appropriations that we're going to consider and consider funding before we could actually make decisions about them. So tonight is not a decision-making night. It is an information gathering tonight, and we thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having us. I am Eric Coyne, Chancellor at Ivy Tech, and I'm happy to have with me tonight Kim Roach, Dean of our Marchant School of Nursing, and Margie Risen and Jasmine Zachariah from our early childhood programs. And so I will briefly go through kind of what we're asking about and asking for, and then open it up to any questions you may have. And we have the experts here to really kind of get into any of the nitty-gritty questions. So without further ado, again, thank you for the time. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. You know, I've been there 2 months now. Ivy Tech is doing amazing things in our community. It's really exciting. And I do know that the county has been a great partner of ours from its inception. And so I really am thankful for that partnership and the continued partnership. So without further ado, if you would please, next slide. And there's Kim's info if you need it, slide. So our nursing program, we produce about 240 nurses a year in our RN program and another 90 in our LPN program. So, you know, quite a big impact here. They all go on to virtually immediate employment, and there's a need and a backlog for more. What we're requesting today is really funds to help us purchase equipment to make the quality of their education even better. We are expanding our lab facilities so that the nurses can have more individualized training and a higher quality level of training. Slide, please. Here's a list of the items we're requesting. We're relocating the skills lab. That'll be somewhere between, $150,000, $200,000. The HAL adult simulators, which are your adult mannequins that, the operator can make do anything, and the poor nursing student has to react to all the different inputs that are thrown their way. And then you can just see the other list of items. All of these items go into our skills lab and our simulator lab, sim lab, that really help increase the quality of the nurses that we are, the nursing education and the quality of the nurses that we're able to put out into the community. So that's really what we're asking for on the nursing side. You can see there's a $465,000 total. It's probably a little bit higher than that when, once everything's fully accounted for, but about, somewhere between 465 and 500,000, we can put to use and spend relatively quickly, well before the December 24 deadline for the ARPA funds. Our next program that I wanted to talk about tonight is our early childhood education program. Slide, please. And Margie and Jasmine are here tonight. Really, we all know there's a need for childcare in the community. 16 weeks of education and a certificate, and you will have the qualifications to open a home childcare center or work within homes. In 8 weeks, you can start working in facilities to while you're continuing your education. So, as a skilled qualified assistant, you can really get going pretty quickly. That's 2 classes, really quick turnaround in 1 8-week term that we have to start working in a center. So we have the ability to impact the community pretty quickly. Our challenge with the nursing program is really, with the early childhood program, is getting qualified candidates. And so, one of the things we really want to work on is elevating the status of, these graduates, elevating the status of teachers in general. There's a pay disparity. How can we increase the quality, increase the pay that they receive in the local community? And fundamentally, how can you make a childcare center work from a financial perspective? So if you flip to the slide, please, and you'll see, here's the list of items, about $180,000 worth of items that, again, very similar to the nursing program I talked about, really will help increase the quality of the education as well as remove some of the barriers for our students to enter into the program. So there's some scholarship opportunities, there's increased quality, equipment items, there's a library, we can buy more appropriate books and cover various exams and fees and things like that for these students. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to move the needle in a meaningful way with a relatively low investment for our community. And because of our 8-week and 16-week certificates, it can move pretty quickly. Frankly, we are the only accredited program in the region when it comes to early childhood education. So, getting our students out with the 2-year associate degree really sets them up from an accredited institution, really sets them up for success if they choose to go on for a bachelor's degree, become teachers. So, so that's sitting right in your backyard here in Monroe County. And slide, please. And those are really the two programs and the two lists of requests I wanted to talk about and share with you tonight. You have these slides. We also have a separate PDF document we provided that has the lists of themselves. And so excited for the opportunity for you to consider these, and look forward to any questions you may have. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the delineation of various costs here. That's great. I'm going to open it for questions. Do any council members to my right? Councilor McKim.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Coyne. Good to see you all here. I did have a question in your narrative here. It refers to plans to establish an on-campus daycare center have been put on hold. Can you tell us essentially why?
Yeah, it's fundamentally a cost issue. There's two things. One is we have a requirement for expanding our nursing program. We need to provide better, higher quality facilities in our nursing program. And the only way to do that is to find a bigger footprint within the space we already have. There's really no ideal space right now, regardless of the nursing move. There's really no ideal space for a daycare, a childcare center in our existing facilities right now. It would require tremendous amount of remodeling, construction, rehabbing, if you will. And the biggest challenge I have is there's really no identifiable cost. There has not yet been a feasibility study. So one item I think would be worthwhile to fund with these ARPA dollars would be a feasibility study on the west side, what it would take for a daycare center. We all, the Northwest Y tried it and it didn't work out. The costs were, essentially was cost prohibitive. What would it take for us, in that west side, anyone, whether it's us or somebody else, how much money would it take? What kind of programs should we be offering? What's the demand? And what are parents willing to pay for that? And what assistance could we get external that might offset some of those costs? And those are, frankly, as coming in new, looking at these programs, I said we need to put this on hold because we just don't have an answer yet for these questions. And what I don't want to do is set expectations that we are, oh yes, absolutely, this is where we're gonna, this is what we're aiming towards, without a feasibility study in hand that really tells us whether we can make this work financially or not.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer.
Yes, I think many of us were waiting on that answer, and I'm sad to hear that it didn't come out, yes, we're ready to open tomorrow, because I know there's so many people that really have need of that, and yet their income that they make going out to work every day, and the reason why they need childcare, that income is not enough to cover the childcare and other costs to encourage them to go out and take that job and keep their career skills up. But I did want to also ask you about another job program that you had in the past, and I don't know whether you still have it. There was it was with Ivy Tech, but it was training out at the airport for auto mechanics. Are you still doing that? Do you know that might have been something before you started?
Yes, absolutely. It's a very popular program. We are, in fact, we would love to figure out a way to expand out at the airport, but with FAA rules and regulations, being a former Air Force attorney, I get it. I know what it's like to try and build on an airfield. So the automotive program is going strong. It still exists out at the airfield, at the airport, and we have great support from them. And we are going to look in the coming year on ways that we can expand the offering out there as well that doesn't impact the current footprint. So that you know we don't want them to lose FAA grant funding or anything like that. So we need to do this in a really smart and deliberate way. But we definitely have the automotive program is going strong out there.
Well, we received just today. I just received my copy of the county news that's sent out. You know, it's nationwide, and one of the things they're talking about for workforce development is trying to find ways that we can educate young folks into, say, the construction areas, whether it be plumbing or electrical or maybe master carpentry, or there's a great need for all of that. And not everyone is going on to higher education. And we need to make sure that those folks are recognized and quite frankly, they make a better living. I know when I pay my plumber, than many people with a 4-year degree. So I know that that's Ivy Tech wants the same thing, or at least that they did at one time. So I'm hoping that we can find a way that we work together on programs like that as well.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a HVAC program, HVAC program. We have an electrical program. We have advanced manufacturing, biotech programs. So a lot of these trades skills that you are discussing, we offer certificates and degrees in a lot of those programs. And so, and always looking to right size those programs and to create where the greatest need is in the community and to answer that call. So absolutely, we are here and ready to help our students. Really, I mean, fundamentally, our goal is to enhance the economy of our region, right? And so through education and training. And so we take that pretty serious and are excited for the programs we do have, and the ones that, you know, we're always looking at how we can modify them and make them more relevant. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Iverson.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor Coyne, for being with us this evening. Thanks also to you too, Dean Roach and Director Risen. We certainly appreciate your time explaining this to us and taking the time to walk us through this budget that you've carefully prepared for us. You know, clearly Indiana needs these two programs. I think it's undeniable that nursing and early childhood education are things that we need with an aging population, and certainly, you know, we feel that early childhood education is something that I personally benefit from with young children, but it's also an economic development issue. We know that Indiana communities lose millions of dollars every single year to inadequate childcare, and so I really appreciate you bringing this forward. My question is I guess to our staff at this point. Do we know if the PDF that's been given to us by Ivy Tech administrators has been sent over to Baker Tilly yet for their review?
No, I just received it today, so it has not been sent over yet.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to hearing kind of from them on their thoughts about the ARPA appropriations, and I, you know, just thank you for your time and coming here, and really appreciate your thoughtfulness in putting this together. I look forward to next steps.
Comments or questions? Yes, Councilor Munson.
I would just like to make a closing comment of thanking you all for being here to answer questions and for giving your presentation. And to note that while this council has been particularly interested in childcare issues and trying to help with this, part of the frustration of finding childcare is that there are not qualified people to fill the jobs that are needed. And your program of early childhood education is a big step towards solving this. And I hope that everyone will look carefully at how we might be able to help Ivy Tech carry this program out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the group? I also wanted to say thank you for taking the time and wading through the previous parts of the meeting. I know that's really exciting for you all. But we appreciate you being here and telling us about this. And I'm interested in maybe talking more about the feasibility study that you mentioned. So we might reach out again, because I think that makes a lot of sense. A child care center in conjunction with the training would be ideal.
Ideal.
I Hope springs eternal for me. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to pushing this along and seeing what we can do.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm looking at, I know it's your turn. I just need to find the how it's phrased and all that. So continuing the ARPA discussion, we've also had proposal from Centerstone, and we have Linda Grove Paul here to talk to us about that. So many good things to
Yeah, I feel
spend
bad.
money on.
I'm in a tough spot right here, and end of the evening, long evening. But really appreciate the time and really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come forward and talk some about the proposal that we put forward. Kind of going through and really trying to evaluate what are the absolute musts, in terms of needs. I know we put forth 4 or 5 options. And, I think the thing to keep in mind is just, housing is sort of first and foremost, and specifically supportive housing for our individuals with serious and persistent mental illness. That is a huge issue for us in our community. And unfortunately, there has been no payment stream available at all for that housing. Now, we've managed over the years to secure some group homes and some homes in the community where we house our individuals. Most of the time we're talking about individuals at high risk of hospitalization, oftentimes coming from state hospital, needing to go into the state hospital, needing to come back out, extremely vulnerable, definitely people who would very likely be on the street and not able to function in the community. And so we're very grateful that we have had facilities to house, but there's no payment. There's been no money for any kind of improvement. And so the couple of facilities that we're talking about are basically going to have to be closed. And the situation that puts us in is there's no replacement money for them. Now, we can pay for the services, and that support for those individuals is incredibly important. And, I think that the good news, and that's kind of how we couched this as we initially presented, was that the mental health has, as we all know, has not been properly funded forever. I mean, and the whole deinstitutionalization, it was like, just send everybody out into the community, but we're not going to send all of the money that we were spending on state hospitals into the community, which is part of the reason why we have such a crisis in terms of housing for those individuals, is there's nothing that really is paying for housing. Now, the good news is, and one of the things I kind of took off the request was transitional housing for our women. So we have a group of women that are in, we call it a Centerstone Recovery Transitional Housing, 8-bed facility. It's in an apartment, and unfortunately, that's the same apartment where we had stepping stones, which the leasing person was not willing to continue to lease to us, but allowed us to keep our CRT, and we have 1 year of funding left. Now, DMH, Division of Mental Health and Addictions, just put out an RFP for transitional recovery housing, which we're going to apply for. So that's the reason why I'm not putting that one forward, because it's definitely a high need, but there's also some hope for funding. But when it comes to our housing for our seriously mentally ill, that is not the case. And we have 2 facilities I want to focus on tonight. One is Blair House, and Blair House is in a historic residential, kind of on the west side. And I was thinking, I don't have the exact street, but you know, we want to keep it confidential. But it is for again, kind of our people who are coming out of state hospitals. And typically you can stay, it's a group home, a year to 2 years. On average, most people are staying for about a year, and then they can transition into that next level. But it's staffed 24/7. You know, these individuals are individuals that need a lot of support. And I think, you know, that's kind of what we see when we see people who end up being incarcerated or they're not med compliant. Like, they're individuals that just need extra support in order to be successful and in order to transition into that next level of care. And Blair House it's an embarrassment. You know, we really are kind of in a position where we just can't keep it open. Our accrediting body, you know, looks at it and says, oh my gosh, but because it's historic and the level of renovations that need to be done, it is probably just a tear down. So we've requested $400,000 for that. It's a 10-bed facility. And we have actually, and we've been doing lots of advocacy with Division of Mental Health and Addictions, and they have some of their own money. And we put Blair House in particular sort of on a list of, you know, potential funding source. And they said that we would likely get 30% of what we requested. So I want to sort of amend that $400,000 to closer to 277 with, you know, knock on wood, we get that 30% dollars there. So Blair House is the first request. And again, you know, I think without that funding, it is probably going to be something that we have to close, and we just don't have money for a building at this point. The second one is Fairview Apartments. Very similar. It's really more independent living, and it is over there next to us. And the city is going to buy it and take it, you know. And the amount of money that we will get for it is not enough for us to have a replacement place for that. So I think $300,000 is what we've requested for Fairview. And it is not a group home. Again, it's more semi-independent living. And so it is not eligible for that 30%. But those are really kind of the top priorities that are tied. And then the third ask is really for our crisis services. And I know I've talked to you guys a few times about Stride. County has been tremendously supportive with Stride Center, you know, a funder for us getting that up and running. And I'm really proud to say on the Stride side of things, you know, it is sustainable. You know, we are, you know, we received money from Division of Mental Health and Addictions to pay for Stride. We've actually opened a second center, and we were one of 15 that were awarded. So the state is really serious about saying we are committing to this crisis continuum. Where there isn't funding yet is on the mobile crisis component. And as you guys know, we started mobile crisis at the beginning of January. We did this with a federal grant, and that's what you're going to see. The funding that we've had to get through is really always cobbled together by federal grants or other grants to to get it going. But mobile crisis is a core component of the work that we're doing, because really, if you have an individual who's in crisis, sometimes they want to come to Stride. Sometimes, it could be a school. They're calling us and they want us to show up at the school, or a family's home, or out in the community. If you have somebody who's really agitated and you're trying to get them to go somewhere, that can be really difficult. So having this mobile team has been, I think, just absolutely amazing. And we have great stories, and I'm happy to give you more information, but I know it's late. So I'll say that I think where we are right now, and this request is sort of a tandem for matching funds for an IU Health Foundation grant that we're applying for. So we feel very good about our application. It's due in about a week, so we know we're not necessarily going to get a commitment, but there is a gap in funding, kind of like what we had when we did Stride the first time. It was about $300,000. We estimate it's more like $250 this time for 3 years. So I get that's not necessarily a one-time ask, although we could maybe structure it differently with other funding partners. And certainly wouldn't expect the county to have to do all of that $250 per year, but like what we did with Stride last time, maybe $100,000 a year over the course of 3 years. But the expectation that there are matching funds, and I would say the benefit to the county, I've already shown some really amazing data in terms of what we can see, how it's affecting our law enforcement. Police are using it, sheriff is using it. We definitely see a 30% decrease in ED admissions and inpatient utilizations for the individuals who are using Stride. One of the managed care companies is actually going to be working with us to identify some of their patients so that they can help support the work that we're doing, because they see the value of it so much. So I'm really excited. I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago at the state. Doug Hunsinger asked me to do it, to talk about Stride, to present the data. We've got a bunch of people coming from other places in the state and other states that are consistently coming to see the work that we're doing. So I think it's great, but this mobile crisis component is just absolutely critical that we get that. And of course, the Health Foundation wants to see that we have partners that are committed to us as well. So those are my 3 asks.
Thank you. And thanks for all the proactive work you're doing.
Thank you.
These programs are so needed, and specific to a crisis response. My husband operated a crisis program for a slightly different population all across southern Indiana, and that's intense. It's logistically very difficult, and but it makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. Well, and I know we were talking about sequential intercept. I mean, the way you keep people from getting into the system is you give them help when they need it.
Exactly.
So if you've got a number that you can call, a
Right.
family member who's at wit's end, and you've got a kid that's you're not sure what to do, you don't want to call 911. You want to get help, and that's the thing that again, I think said in the beginning of the remarks that we sent to you, but it's just there hasn't been a crisis continuum. And I think in large part, people have been mad at us for a long time saying, why aren't you doing more? You should be doing more. Well, you can only do what gets paid for. And so there has been just a watershed of, real breakthrough. And I think, the federal government sees it, the state government sees it. It's bipartisan. I mean, we are getting support across party lines, because every community pretty much says, what's 1 and 2 in your community in terms of need? It's mental health and addictions.
Right.
And I think in some ways, it's easy to sort of blame the providers. And I think the providers are really trying to do everything that they possibly can to make this work, and especially in this environment. Like, you know, you think about like childcare workers, how do you recruit people? Well, you really recruit people by helping to build them up and make them, you know, feel good about the work that they're doing and feeling valued. And I think that's what we're really seeing with a lot of this crisis work too, is, you know, people are coming in and they're excited about being able to do more prevention, more health promotion, again, really trying to meet with folks before, you know, they get into the system, and give the resources to those frontline first responders, right? To whether it's law enforcement or, you know, people who are showing up at the ED. So just really making sure that, you know, the people who can really respond to this crisis are the ones that are available. So get the word out about it. That's, you know, something we got to work on. But.
Right. I will start on my left. Councilor Iverson.
Thank you for being here, and clearly we really appreciate all the work you put into these proposals. I think, you know, we've been working on these things together for a while, and so clearly there's a lot of interest, I think, at least from me. My question is going to be to staff again. Do we know if Baker Tilly's received this?
I don't think they have.
Okay, great. So
yeah, so I probably need to amend it, right? Because I did make a couple of.
That would probably be good to even like Councilor McKim was saying earlier to the parks folks too. I mean, something that
It's kind of a one
specific.
pager.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm happy to do that. I won't fight you on it either.
Well, and what we have in the packet is really succinct. So
It is, yeah.
You're more than halfway there.
Okay,
Yeah, I kind of feel like, it's just.
Yeah,
I
it would
sort of
just
done
take a
that
few
one
minutes. Yep.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other comment down this way? Nope. Comment or question this way. Councilor McKim.
So on the Fairview Apartments, you said, so is the city tearing that down for Hopewell?
I believe so, yes.
And do you know, was it condemned, or did they,
Well,
did
they
offer
said they
you
were
any
going to
blue-
buy it because I think, and then they said they thought they would tear it down it's part of the Hopewell project, but it's still there now. So I'm not, you know, I'm not really involved in the facility, so I'm not really sure about the timeline for that.
So the $300,000, is that to rebuild on another site?
That
Or
would be to
purchase an
find,
existing-
to find something. And, you know, obviously purchasing is really difficult. You know, that's, I mean, just while I'm here, that's the one thing with the DMHA grant when we looked at it is basically, you know, it's the top ask is $750,000, and that would be for 20 beds, so like 37, you know, thousand per person per bed, and it's for 1 year. But you know, when we were like, okay, for our 8 women, when you look at what you could get, you know, and then zoning and, you know, just the issues that you have in terms of what you could actually afford in Monroe, I think it's going to be really hard for us to do in Monroe. That's kind of our number one priority, but, you know, having the dollars available to make it work is difficult. And, you know, maybe we can do something out of county but as you guys know, it's tough.
Okay. And so just to summarize, you're looking for 277 for Blair House is your top priority,
Right.
300 for Fairview,
Right.
and then 250 per year for Mobile Crisis. And that would kind of work in hand in hand with a potential grant from IU Health Foundation.
Right. Yeah. And like I say, I'll probably just make a suggestion of, you know, 125 or something per year on the mobile crisis.
Oh, so the
side of
250 is the
things.
total gap.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
okay,
So this, because talking to the city, talking to Community Foundation and the Health Foundation as well.
Got it. Thank you.
So if we did that. And the 3-year would be able to be spent within the year it was.
So what we could
allotted.
do is we could structure it so we say year 1, maybe we could just get the county funding for that.
Got it.
Is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If we could get the 250, you know, and then the year 2 and year 3, I go to other funders.
Kind of taper off. Got
Mhm.
it. Sounds good.
Yeah. So if you want me to put it in that way, if that in terms of the proposal? Does
That
that
would
make the most sense?
probably be good, because
Okay.
that will be something that.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to clarify, so, okay.
Yeah, and make it clear what it's
Yes.
matching or what it's
Okay,
leveraging.
right. Okay.
And then, yeah, like the timeline for spending it out, that's a good one. Counselor Hawk?
Yes, when I heard you speak of Blair House, and I believe I've visited there years ago. But did you say that it was a complete tear down or something? I mean,
I think in terms of when we have had somebody come in to look at foundation, like there are so many massive structural issues with it that I think they said it would be pretty close to a tear down.
So are you giving up on that building?
I think the cost would probably be greater than what we're asking for to do that. So, would we be willing to look at that building? I think it would be great, but it's also historic, which, would probably add to some additional costs. And we wouldn't end up tearing it down, we would, we would.
You'd want to lose all kinds of support throughout this
Well,
thing.
and that might be something worthwhile to at least look, I will definitely have my facilities person take a look at that and, maybe get an estimate to say, hey, in order to stay there, because it's a great location and it's got good bones. I mean, it's large, it's got enough space for our staff. It's old enough, accessibility is an issue. We have a lot of people who have some physical issues. So, we'd certainly need to be able to attend to that. But I think it's definitely worthwhile.
And sometimes you just hit the wall when you say it isn't going to work out here.
Yeah, but I mean, that's Recovery Engagement Center, Recovery House. Yeah, same thing, which is beautiful now.
Other questions? Yeah, Counselor Crossley.
It's not so much a question, it's a comment. So thank you so much for all the work that you do and you continue to do. My interest, my spidey senses kind of peaked up a little when we talk about the Fairview apartment and your mention, and it's also here in the packet in terms of how the city is very much interested in that site and building. And my immediate thought process goes back to the conversations that we've had with my colleagues over here in regards to the JFAC, the Justice Financial Advisory Committee. And there has been talk of, not so much like it's set in stone, but there's just so much talk of what the county can do in terms of, this dollar here, or matching that dollar here, that dollar there. I think this right here, because it goes without saying, you fund your priorities. And so with that being said, we as a community, both county and city alike, have a shared responsibility in funding our priorities. And our priorities would be to help those that are in need, to help those that are trying to help those in need, and has all the components of reducing recidivism and all of those different things. So I guess my comment would be, if we have any members that are watching from JFAC or anybody in the public, this would be a great opportunity for us to now put our money where our mouth is, and work together collaboratively. The city obviously has a need for that particular space, and we obviously have a need to help those that are in need. So this would be a really good time for us to collaborate together.
I think that's
and match. So that is something that I definitely plan on bringing up and talking in the near future.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that 300,000 is net. I believe that we were told maybe 150 is what we could expect for the lot. So I think the total of what we were thinking we would need was more like 450, which is, where that came from. But yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. And I think, again, just that conversation we were having last night is, so much of what people need in order to be successful is they need support. They need the connection. And the same thing's true with, I talked a little bit last night, Mary Morgan was talking about, getting property owners and, on board, is if they have support, they have somebody that they can go to, that they can count on, they're going to get their rent, they're going to deal with the, any kind of situations or problems that are coming up to help them sort of manage that risk, because that's a risk management pool too, right? Is people, and having people who are really, caring for them that, I think we're going to have much better outcomes too. So I definitely think that supportive housing component is really key. And I feel like a lot of the 150 or so folks that we're housing in Bloomington are kind of invisible. People don't necessarily know how much housing we're doing. And in large part, it's, again, we have good relationships with landlords and that kind of thing. But I think people are sometimes afraid, oh, the word's going to get out, or, that kind of thing. So I think making it more visible and having more people really get on board in terms of saying like, yeah, this is a big part. We got to help make people be successful. So I think it's great to make it a community effort for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Councilor Munson.
Thank you for presenting this and talking about the possibilities that are being considered. I would like to follow up on the historic quality of the properties that you mentioned. Is it on the city's inventory of historic sites?
I believe it is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I'm going to follow up after tonight with you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah,
Thank you.
No, that'd be wonderful. Mm-hmm.
I have a few
I'll get
ideas.
the address and we'll,
Okay.
Absolutely, that'd be great. No, I think that's a great suggestion because, again, it's sort of like, it just felt so impossible to us to even consider, yeah, that might be something that we could do. But if there is a possibility, I definitely think we would for sure be interested. So.
Councilor Deckard has his hand raised on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's what happens.
Yeah.
No, it's a recent hand raise. I was just going to make the comment, and the point is I appreciate very much what you said to us tonight, and I also am very grateful for what you've said in the past. You did give some of the most illuminating numbers when you were in talking about Stride and particularly activity now starting in Bartholomew County. And it really moved me. One note, and I think it shouldn't get lost, based on some of your comments and some of our discussion is, if we look at this, how state policy has changed as far as defunding of the hospitals that they had, but then not offering alternatives once they abandoned that. And certainly those hospitals had some severe criticisms, and rightfully so. But also the reality that we're talking about locations that are older locations that carry their own burden and their own need. Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to kind of priorities. Even we're talking about Fairview Apartments. We're now talking about a location that's being seized by someone else for a different opportunity. And so here's people just shuttling around
getting
and around
displaced
and around.
Again. Mm-hmm.
And I guess my message, this is more for me than you, Linda, is that as policymakers, we have to kind of look at that and look, we're just the county. But county, state, federal, all of us have to kind of look at that. That again, we're talking about, well, an old structure's been given, and that was what was offered, and now this thing's got issues. Someone abandoned that property for a reason. So it's, I think in our neighborhoods, in our lives, we're actually talking about our friends, our neighbors, our family members, and kind of think about that as policymakers. Now, I don't profess I have any answers on that. If I did, we'd have it done, I guess. But we've got to kind of think about that. What's happening? The triage of this has dropped off over a number of years, and now we're trying to figure it out because people have figured out that they hadn't got it done. So anyway, I'm grateful for that, but I wanted to offer that as I'm thinking about this.
That.
Yeah, thank you. Are there other comments or questions for Ms. Grove-Paul? No. Well, again, thank you for your patience this evening, and this is night 2 in a row, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
I know,
it's really,
tomorrow, right?
We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and we'll definitely give this some good consideration, try and move it forward
Great,
for you.
and I will send a follow-up document.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Are there other ARPA projects that anyone would like to bring up and just start a quick discussion, at least get out in the open, something that you're looking forward to or hoping we will discuss soon. I had a C here listed for other projects that I didn't have full documentation for, so it's whatever.
Well, I had mentioned a broadband investment. I don't have any further information on that, but I just want to keep it in front of everybody.
Anybody else have something?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, okay. What has been suggested regarding ARPA, because it is a commissioner council collaborative thing, is that we schedule after July, schedule some specific meetings that co-convene the two bodies, focus on just ARPA, so it's not here at 8 o'clock at night, and we move forward. There's Julie Thomas with her camera on high. So since you're here, would you like to talk about any either potential projects, updates, or the idea of having meetings?
So just a couple quick things. One of the things we're looking at with having more information from Baker Tilly is changing out some of the funding mechanisms to the Revenue Replacement Fund. So we're working on that and going through that. And the other thing I would ask is we really need to move forward on things. For example, we have an IU study that's, as far as I know, ready to go, but I don't know if they have gone through the process of getting approval from IU for a human study, but from inmates and formerly incarcerated individuals. We really need to get that done. So there are things like that that we really should try to move forward on as soon as possible. So I don't know that we all want another meeting, but I would ask that if you keep these items on every council agenda, that you advertise them so that we can actually vote on them. I think that would be super helpful to get us moving forward again on some of these things that are pretty pressing.
Absolutely. Thanks. I think it was an oversight that we didn't carry forward the appropriation from the last meeting. So it's been advertised for our work session, and we'll continue to do that to make it easier to move quickly. And the IU study is the one for surveying people in the jail. We have gotten information on that, so that will be on our next meeting agenda for a vote. And then we'll just talk about scheduling, if scheduling other meetings could work for you. I think with our budget sessions and time of year coming up, it is very busy, but also this topic warrants not being in 8 o'clock at night kind of discussion. So I'll work with you all on figuring out how to best streamline that. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Our last item is, our last official item is number 13 from the council office. And it's an amendment to the 2023 retention bonus supplemental. And I believe Ms. Turner King is going to tell us a little bit about this.
So some time ago, the council approved the retention bonus language that went into the salary ordinance. And we had tried to account for most of the situations that could arise, but there's one that came up that we didn't account for. So here, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. What I'm pulling up is the language in the salary ordinance as it pertains to the retention bonus. And what it specifically says is that if an employee is hired on or before the date of the beginning of the quarter and they are actively employed at the end of the quarter, they qualify for the retention bonus. And then you set out an amount for full-time employees and part-time employees. What we didn't account for is what happens if someone is a part-time employee at the beginning of the quarter and somewhere before the end of the quarter, they move to a full-time position. Do they get the part-time amount or do they get the full-time amount?
Not allowed. Can't do it.
I think there are two options. One is probably easier for staff. I think option one would be to prorate it somehow. Or option two is to add language that would say whatever your status is at the end of the quarter is the status that you receive. So if you're part-time at the end of the quarter, you receive part-time. If you're full-time at the end of the quarter, you receive full-time.
Okay, those are the two options you're proposing?
Those are two options that I see. If you see a different option, I mean, I will put whatever you want in this resolution.
Thank you for that. I will entertain some comments on that. Yes,
Prorate.
yeah. Any thoughts?
It's fine.
I don't understand why we wouldn't prorate. Just kind of try to get it to the nearest, most accurate.
You
point.
can't argue with prorating.
Yeah.
You just can't argue.
It is the will of the council that you prorate. Should there be a motion on this one?
Well, there should be a motion to amend the salary language. I'm just trying to draft the language for that amendment.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Do you want a few minutes? Should we take a quick moment?
We could do council comments.
We could do council comments while you do that. All right. We're going to table that. And
Is
move.
that the tabling?
This is the tabling
American
sign.
Sign Language?
And I would like to open council comments. Does anyone have anything to say? Go ahead.
So one of our staff is not doing very well and is recuperating. And I wanted to lift her up in this time of recuperation, and just, in the off chance that she's listening to this meeting, we are thinking of you. We miss you, and we cannot wait for you to be back, but not too soon. Don't come back early.
There's an update.
Well, and I'll give a live update on that topic.
Excellent.
I believe that staff person has been approved to work some hours from home, so she intends to do so maybe starting tomorrow.
Do we get a say in that?
Go home.
I'm gonna put your feet up, watch a show. Anyway, huge thanks to the staff that is here. Just absolutely doing an amazing job with an extended leave. So thank you so very much for everything you all do.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councilor Crossley.
So this past Saturday, myself, along with some of my incoming city colleagues, Carrie Thompson for mayor, Shruti Rana, and Isak Ansari, we all went out to the Crestmont area and just knocked doors. And it wasn't anything of asking for anybody's votes or anything like that. We just realized, and that's also a part of my district, that is an area that has been underserved for a very, very, very long time. And we got a feel for that when we knocked at doors and people didn't really want to have conversations with us. And those that we did have conversations with, it was really hard trying not to get super emotional with talking to people, because people were very much thankful at the fact that somebody came to their door to knock on their door and talk with them in regards to what they think government can do better, whether that's city government, whether that's county government, what we all can do. And so it got us to thinking that we will. I always kind of maybe dreamed of something like this, but it is something of a reality. So on July 27th, which is a Thursday, at 7 p.m. at the Crestmont Boys and Girls Club, myself, along with the same colleagues, incoming colleagues, are gonna have a listening session where all is invited. Specifically, we wanted to really target the Crestmont area, but we are also it's open up for the community as well. And this is not a talk to session, this is a listening session, because there are a lot of misinformation that a lot of people felt in terms of, can people vote that have, previous history? How can, things happen. So I was really thankful, and it gave me a lot of food for thought and how we can do better and how I can also do better as a representative for that particular area to do better. And I think when you know better, you do better. And so when you listen to people, you take into consideration things that can be better on all levels. So again, that is July 27th at 7 p.m. at the Crestmont Boys and Girls Club. And I look forward to having a healthy and robust dialogue and conversation with those community members in that area.
Good deal.
Thanks. My husband put it on my calendar. And I didn't make the connection. I was like, hey, there's a listening session. Oh, that's you. So I might see you. Any other council comments? No, nobody's got anything to
Ms.
say.
Molly Turner King, do I need to make another comment?
Sure.
I have one.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, there we
sorry,
go.
I missed your hand.
I just wanted to comment. I away from the council right now for work, and obviously I miss being in the Natty Hill. It's easier to do this job there in person. But one comment I wanted to make: there was a recent article that discussed some of our council processes that we use, including the fact that we do use a document that helps us move along in our meetings and stick to order. And there was, so that we have greater time for deliberation and that we're very lawful. There were two examples tonight. One where Councilor Iverson, who's reading tonight while I'm gone, had a very lengthy motion with a lot of lengthy processes. And I think history will bear out that we're grateful for those things that document that along in the minutes. And here is a good example as we're doing our council comments while legal can figure out precisely what we need to say so that our folks get paid in the right way for the right work that they've done, reflecting the will of the taxpayers' representatives.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to point out that in our community, good government is a good thing. It's never a bad thing. And this council has worked very hard for that. For anyone that thinks any of this is scripted, I'd love to see a script that tells me what I'm doing in the day. But the reality is we do what we do so that we do it right, because we know counties that don't always have that. And we want to get it right. So thanks for indulging me, Madam President.
Okay.
Oh, yes, Councilor Munson.
So while good government is in process and writing the resolution that we're going to consider, I just wanted to mention another aspect of good government, which took place yesterday and today and also tomorrow. And that is a training session offered by the national organization that helps with jail research and planning. And members of your county council, Mr. Iverson and myself, and members of your board of commissioners, all three of them, plus the staff, the key staff at the jail, the sheriff, the chief deputy, and the jail commander, and very importantly, the facilities people who are key to the operations of the jail and the planning for a new facility, all met together. We were divided into 4 teams, and we were put through the paces. I'll tell you, it was 8 to 5, all 3 days is a lot of work. And one thing that I took away from this that I wanted to share with you is that policy and operations drive everything. And tagging onto this is cost. And it's very difficult to estimate costs, but we have to know our policies and the operations that we're going to have. And then we can figure out the costs. And then we're going to have an idea about what kind of jail we will have. So just wanted to fill you in on that.
Thank you, and thanks to both of you for attending. I know the rest of us would have liked to have attended, and I'm looking forward to picking your brains on what you've learned and how we can incorporate it into what we're doing. So thank you. Ms. Turner-King, are we able to craft a motion? Okay. I will read what you wrote, and then you can.
I can read it if you
Okay,
like.
go for it.
It's very simple language, and I don't know how precise you want me to get. So I would propose adding to the salary ordinance, specifically in the section referring to the retention bonus. If an employee transfers from a part-time to a full-time position or vice versa after a quarter begins but before a quarter ends, the quarterly amount to be received by the employee will be prorated based on the date of transfer and status.
That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It was work of art.
This is legal work on it.
Yeah.
Council, I move we amend the 2023 salary ordinance section on retention bonus to include the text that was just read to us.
Second.
Any further questions, discussion? Seeing none, do we do public comment? No, we're good? All right, thank you. In that case, could we have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you all for your patience and stick-to-itiveness, and have a lovely rest of your week. This meeting is adjourned.